Hey everybody, Patty here. Today I'm going to show you how to make this. Out of rhinestones that you can cut with your Cricut machine or your Silhouette machine. And how to put it on a canvas bag like this. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really cool thing out of rhinestones. So the first thing you need to do is just get a heart shape from up here in the Flexi Shapes and draw that out. After you've drawn out the heart, you'll want to put your text on here. I'm going to put the word love. And I'm going to stretch this out, but obviously this isn't the font that I'd like. It's not very attractive. So I'm going to use Samantha Upright. It's a font that I use a lot. I've gotten it from Creative Fabrica. I'll have the link for it for you down below. It's a really neat font to use for so many things. Has so many little swirls and glyphs and stuff to make it really pretty. As you can see, it comes in like this. Look at the L compared to the L on the left hand side, and look at the E compared to the other E that I used. But as I said, first I'm going to go ahead and stretch it and make it about the size I want. Now you can see I've highlighted the L and I'm still in Samantha Craft. I'm going to go to the second button in, which is a G, and it stands for glyph. And I'm going to look for a fancy letter L. So there are several in here that you can choose from, and I chose this one right here. And all I did was double click on it and it got right into position. I'm going to do the same thing with the lowercase e. So I've got to scroll way down to where the lowercase letters are and look for an E that I like. You can see how many pretty fancy things there are in this. And if you scroll way down to the bottom when you're in Samantha Craft, I think you'll really be shocked at all the really pretty swooshes and fancy things that you can use. But right now we're just doing the letters. So I'm looking for the E that I used before because I really like how it turned out. Okay, there it is. Double click on it and it puts it right in there. So I'm going to move this word love over to be positioned about where I'd like it to be. And once I'm satisfied with it, I'm going to grab everything, meaning draw a box around everything. And I'm going to come over here to the modify panel and say subtract. And that subtracted the word right out. Now notice I'm able to move those inside pieces. I don't want to be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on it and then group. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the Rhinestone panel, which is way over here on the right. And I've decided I just want my rhinestones to be on the outer edge of this because I think it will be really pretty. I'm putting it on a bag and I like it. And here you can see the one that I did originally, and I put a piece of black behind it just so you could see how it looks. Now you'll notice when you look at this that there are some rhinestones that appear to be missing, and I'll show you how to fix that in a bit. Right now all I'm doing is stretching this, and if you remember from my last lesson about rhinestones, we can stretch things or make things smaller while we're working in Silhouette because it changes the number of rhinestones. It does not change the size of the rhinestone whole. So I'm stretching this out to see if I can get it to fill in just a little bit better. So I've decided, I think, to make it 7. Oh, I was going to make it the same size as the one beside it. 7.780. I'll hit enter and we'll see if it turns out exactly like that one. Okay, so you can see where there's some rhinestones that I'm going to have to add. So you can see more clearly here where I would be adding the rhinestones. Especially if I scroll in, you can see where there's some missing. So all you need to do is in the rhinestone panel, there's something called freehand. So you just click where you want to add one and add it in there. Freehand click and freehand and click. Okay, so those are a little bit close together, so I'd want to kind of adjust how those are in here. In order to be able to do that, I want to release the rhinestones, which is going to put a box around all of those little rhinestones and allow me to move them individually. You see how I can move that one individually and that one, so I can move them apart so they're not quite touching each other. Now you're going to find when you see the total end of this that these rhinestones are a little bit too close together, and since I was cutting the pattern or the template out of cardstock rather than the sticky flock, I had a little problem with it tearing, but I was able to remedy that by using a spray adhesive, a temporary spray adhesive on the back of my template before I started adding the rhinestones. Looks like I can add another one in there. And again, it's a little too close, so I might want to move some of these rhinestones. Whoops. Okay, when you drag like that, if it's selected, it has you adding like a whole line of rhinestones. So I just hit delete or undo to go back and just added one rhinestone. So I can separate these a little bit again and just kind of adjust them so that they fit perfectly. And I think that looks really nice. So what I'm doing now is this is just the box that will be cut behind my rhinestones. So I'm making the box closer. So, well, if I was using sticky flock, I wouldn't be using that much. Now I'm just using cardstock, so it doesn't really matter, but okay, I'm ready to begin cutting it out. I have my cardstock set on textured heavy. I've changed my blade depth, and I'm going to do a test cut. I always do a test cut. Make sure that everything is going to work perfectly. I don't want to go through this whole thing and not have the holes cut out right. So I'm checking it. I'm checking both the square and then the little triangle that's cut inside. And they work just about perfectly, but I decided maybe to no, I've left it just as it is. So I'm going to start cutting, and when this is done cutting, I'll meet you back here. Okay, it's finished cutting, and I'm going to eject it and begin tearing it off or taking it off of the sticky mat. You are going to notice at some point that there's a little bad section that gets torn, and that's probably because I'm using cardstock rather than sticky flock. But as I may have mentioned earlier, it will be an easy fix because I'm going to spray it with my temporary spray, meaning I'll spray the back of the template before I put it down on my cookie sheet. Okay, it came off pretty well. There are some little dots that I'm going to have to remove, just by poking them out with a pokey tool. But right there, I'm looking at that spot that I talked about that's messed up. Okay, at this point now, I'm going to show you the spot that I'm talking about that's messed up. Those were too close together, so there's a cut there, and I'm a little concerned about how well that's going to work, except for that I believe that my temporary spray adhesive, I'm using this 404 spray by Odif. anyone would work, and I'm spraying it in a trash can right beside me so I don't get the sticky all over everything. And once that's done, I'll bring in my tray again that I use, and I'm going to stick this down right into my tray. And what I really like using about using the sticky spray is I don't need to worry about having all the edges taped down, that there's not going to be any rhinestones that are going to sneak underneath the edges of my cardstock or even get up underneath the template between where the rhinestones are. So you just dump out a pile of rhinestones, more than you'll think you'll need, and using this little brush. Now this one came from the Silhouette Rhinestone kit that I started with. And I have that link down below for you too if you want to see what it is. But you can probably use anything, like, for example, those little paint brushes that you can get at the Dollar Tree, like 10 for $1 or something. Maybe you can just use your fingers to mush them into place. On mine, I did have to add some with my fingers because I had a little tiny bit of trouble. Cardstock works really, really well. It's just takes a little bit more time sometimes than the sticky flock to get the rhinestones exactly into the position where you'd like them. So I'm going to work on this for a few minutes and then I will be back. Okay, at this point now the rhinestones are all in position in about 2 seconds. There we go. And I'm ready to use my transfer tape to transfer the rhinestones off of the cardstock onto the sticky transfer paper. So when I put that paper on, I think I forgot to videotape this. I make it into a U shape and then gently drop it down. And now I'm just patting it down to make sure that everything is well touching the sticky part of the transfer tape so that when I pull it up, it will all come up. I can tell you that oftentimes when you're pulling it up, 1 or 2 or maybe even more than that, rhinestones won't come up where you expect them, when you expect them to, like you saw one right there. So what you do is you push the sticky transfer tape back on top of it to get it to pull up properly. So I'm just going to go ahead and gently pull this all the way across. And as you can see, there might, or maybe you can't see, but there are a few places where I did not get the rhinestones in where they should be. And then I had a couple extra rhinestones on here that I'm trying to tap off that shouldn't be in there. So one by one, I'm just going to start putting the new rhinestones on. Might be about 5 different places. So I'll just pick it up by pressing it into my finger and then putting it into position as best I can. Sometimes I use the pick-me-up tool from Silhouette. Sometimes I just use my hands and a little pushy tool of some sort to move them around. But it's easy to see where they're missing and it's easy to put them in. Okay, once those are all in place, it's time to get out my bag onto which I'm going to put this beautiful love rhinestone design. Now inside of my bag, I didn't show, but I put that little cutting mat and ironing mat that I like to use. You'll see it in a moment when I get it out, but I'm making sure everything's pressed on there nicely. I am going to cover it with a Teflon sheet, and then I'm waiting for my Easy Press to heat up. I have a large one and this time it works well. I have my press set up at 335 degrees for 15 seconds. Okay, obviously once it's done, you take it off and carefully peek and see how it looks. I start slowly because I want to make sure that no rhinestones come off, that I have adhered them well, and it looks perfect. So what I'm going to do now is take the Teflon sheet and cover it again and do one more little bit. But before I do that, I did notice that one rhinestone is missing. Somehow I missed a rhinestone, so I'm going to stick one in here. You see that little hole maybe. I'm going to stick that one in there right now and then take my sheet over top of it and press it again. And that's pretty much it. It looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to take that thing out I told you about before, and I'll have this link down below for you. You might want to get one of these. It's not the cheapest thing ever, but it's so handy to use for so many things. But look how beautifully this turned out. I hope you can see the sparkles a bit. So I'm just checking them to make sure they're all adhered well, especially that new one that I put on there. I'm going to take this pad now, put it underneath, and then just press it one time from the back, because that's where the glue is on the rhinestones. It's on the back of them. So I want to make sure that it's really melted and really melted into the fabric of this bag. Okay, y'all, I have got to tell you, I'm just absolutely thrilled with how this turned out. It's so beautiful. It looks nice on camera, but let me tell you, it looks even prettier in real life. If you could see the way these rhinestones sparkle and glitter, it's just beautiful. Well, thanks again for joining me. Hey, I hope you like the tips I had for you today. If you like my videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.